The news of the death of Arday has just got through, and it shook me. I should have seen it coming. He is a victim, as well as maybe a participant, in the ghastly inhumanity of ideology. This talk is entitled In Memoram. A woke tragedy unmasks the inhumanity of ideology. It is remarkable that the university he was at, I'll have a decency not to mention its name, managed to play him like a violin, even as he may have thought he was playing them like a violin. I think if it's a matter of blame, there's a weird innocence to all the parties involved. People will attack the academics as being responsible. They are responsible in one way, but beyond that, there's a sort of infantile innocence. My apologies to children, because adults behaving like children is not really excusable. The way the head of his department oozed and almost swooned when she talked to him in that famous small exchange that's been published, when he asks her what was the basis of his selection to become a professor. He was infantile, like a teenager, or not even a teenager, pre-teen, getting excited over mummy being nice or giving her a prize or something like that. Ideology controls thinking. Once an individual accepts it in, it's like a sort of processing system in thought itself. As it develops, which is usually inculcates through a process of loadings in words, particular jargon, which interlock with each other to create an ideological control system in thought. This system automatically processes political, social, moral issues without intervention of conscious criticism. Consciousness, in effect, stands aside. The ideologically possessed so become partly robotic. It's quite creepy, really. Now, the strength of ideology in terms of politics is that this process can infect. I don't like using these metaphors because they're inhuman in themselves, but we're dealing with something inhuman. Infect, I think Musk talks about a virus. It's unpleasant because it sort of dehumanizes. But ideology does dehumanize, infect people in such a way that they have as much control over a large chunk of our thinking as they might have control over, shall we say, the grim process of smallpox taking over the chunks of their bodies, leading to their death. And in extreme, ideology does lead, first of all, to mental death and then physical death. And why? Because ideology does not exist for humanity. It exists for its own survival despite it not being conscious. It has its robotic prime objectives. And the second objective is spread. So the main aim of ideologues, be they woke, be they socialist, communist, fascist, any ist you might like to mention almost, is to use humans as devices to spread and inculcate others. Now, if there's a situation where there's a particularly stroppy human being that will not be inculcated and will not obey the prescriptions of ideology, then they're against ideology and its survival. Well, you can imagine what that implies. They must be either muted, silenced, or, this is the posh way of putting it, eliminated. In common language, they've got to be killed. Arday became an embarrassment to ideology, so great that in effect the ideology within him dictated that he should go. And ideologues can be remarkably self-destructive. There were many in Soviet Russia who were consigned to Lubyanka or some other place, antechambers, to death on the command of Stalin, and they wrote notes to him saying, where have we gone wrong? And many of them genuinely believed that somehow their fate would have deterred someone who failed to conform to and to promote the great ideology of perfection and of all good things, but somehow they'd tripped up. It wasn't Stalin who'd in effect consigned them to death, but some mistake they made, or maybe Uncle Joe had been misinformed. This goes back in history. I mean, with the Tsars, many people believed that all the sort of trouble leading up to the revolution was because the Tsar had been misinformed, didn't really know, and if he did know, it wouldn't be like this. There's a sort of denial in that, which ran through Russian society like writing on a stick of rock. Unfortunately, writing on a stick of rock only exists as long as you've got the stick to eat. Once things get really tough, that delusion is swept away. And in turn, very little is left to replace it as society disintegrates and is systematically destroyed by ideologues with the intention that to replace it should be ideology and its prescriptions and a few, as it were, a la Animal Farm, pigs who call shots and live in rather nice dachas, have ZIL limousines or whatever to go around to make certain that everyone else is suitably crushed by ideological dictate. And they dictate ideology. Ideology doesn't dictate itself. It is, strictly speaking, neither guilty nor innocent. It's just a robotic system of thought which strips people of agency. Because if it's busily making moral, political and social decisions for you, you've got to remember that these thoughts, which it controls, still remain essential to being conscious and being existing as a human being. So if someone comes along and criticises a full-blown ideologue that what is essential for their human existence, i.e. thinking, I think, hence I am. It's not the therefore thing. It's a big mistake to confuse hence with therefore, and which is very commonly done. I think, hence I am. Then you are attacking the essence of their existence, despite the fact that what you're attacking is what has made people robotic, made people abandon their right to judge. This is one of the problems of modern relativism, of course. Abandon their right to judge and abandon their own agency and sense of responsibility for their actions. It's a ghastly thing. It's as if they are fighting tooth and nail in the name of protecting their consciousness and what they think is the essence of their humanity, for the very thing that enslaves them and dehumanizes them. I can think of little more ironic. And the very sad thing is the Cambridge academics, sorry, I shouldn't mention the C word, it's too late now. Those academics, and it's not unique to that university, it's right across the university system, both here in the UK, in the US and elsewhere, are in many cases, have in many cases, surrendered their agency and their humanity. It's really, really terrible. It's a sort of obscenity. Arday is a full-blown tragedy. He had a sort of fatal flaw, and his fatal flaw was to trust too much. To trust too much and then to go along with the flow. People were saying he was wonderful, and the more he, I wouldn't say lied, but the more he invented things that pleased them to hear, the better he seemed to do. Yes, there are some people with strong enough character, or maybe people who've been fortunate to have an artificially strong character because of the luck of their background and birth. I see many of that people, that strange frailty, that sort of faux confidence from the privately educated in many cases. I had it by the bucket load when I was younger. It was then beaten out of me by what you might call life experience. I've got it back now because I've done a bit of thinking. I hope it turned me into something more human. I hope so, but who knows? And naturally, Arday thought, well, what am I doing wrong? If the system is rewarding me and promoting me and saying I'm wonderful for almost anything that I say, then it seems reasonable to go on doing it. There are many who will say, oh, he lied, X, Y, Z. Yes, but, you know, I have yet to meet anyone who has said the total truth all their life. It is an act of hypocrisy to say, I never lie. A simple example of a lie. Say you're next to your mother and she's driving along the motorway and you get a message on your mobile phone saying that your brother is seriously ill in hospital due to, let's say, a car accident elsewhere, of course. Now, the last thing you should do when your mother says, oh, is that John? How's he doing? Is to say, well, he's critical and dangerously in hospital because he had a car crash. Meanwhile, you're going along the motorway at, I don't know what, 100 kilometres per hour, whatever it is, 70 mph, 65, 70 mph. Heavy traffic, and mother naturally gets distraught. This is a recipe for another car crash. No, what you say to her is, I received a message, John's had a bit of a little bit of a bump in his car, he seems to be okay, shall we stop at the service station and give a ring and find out? You know, or not even that, because mothers will even get upset about that. You have to somehow lie your way around that to accommodate the fact that people are human beings, and she would naturally get dreadfully upset. And it's the last thing you need to do in heavy traffic, that's a little bit with the rain coming down, on a motorway, wherever you are. So you lie to her. She'll be furious when you tell her the truth, but that fury will be a lot better if it happens in a service station than if you're in the middle of a hugely busy main road with a genuine danger that you could cause a pile-up. It's a lie. but you're catering for human emotion. So it is respect for humanity that you do that, and for your own safety, of course. It just takes a little bit of maturity and a little bit of understanding to appreciate that lies sometimes are absolutely necessary. Now, in Arday's case, there's no doubt as a young man from a poor background with socially limiting and employment limiting to an extent, although it was overcome, it could be overcome when he was young, but certainly more than someone with a different colour, was a bit of a fix. And he did what was sensible in the end. He pushed buttons, and the buttons produced green lights that go ahead, we're going to reward you for saying this, that and the other. And he went on pushing them, pushing them, pushing them. Until finally he pushed so many buttons, the sheer weight, the edifice of conforming to ideological correctness was so great that it imploded, it collapsed. His life collapsed around him because the nature of ideology, in this case, some people call it woke, but it could be almost any ideology given the situation, a different situation, but just it destroys people. Arday was a victim of ideology and a victim of those who had given up their agency, those academics who had shamefully given up their agency for their own career advancement, just as Arday had to an extent. They participated in his downfall. Now, I'm not saying the academics who were inculcated by wokeness deliberately engineered this. Far from it. Because if they knew what they were doing, they would know that the ideology that was controlling our thoughts was genuinely dangerous, and they would have rejected it in themselves. So that is a perverse innocence. This is a tragedy without, as it were, without villains. I know from my time at university, I was hideously unfashionable in Manchester in the late 70s, a member of the upper caste going to Manchester in a time when it was painfully fashionable to think the revolution was round the corner. Some people came up to me and said with a very straight face, well, when this happens, you're going to go. Meaning I would suffer a similar fate to landlord class and such like in Maoist China. And yeah, I'll most likely be killed. Highly likely, because I even had a title like a sort of albatross around my neck. It's something which you can't get rid of. Rather like smallpox in the old days before vaccination. You're doomed in those cases. The pustules gave the game away. So yes, they thought I had a mental virus in my head, a stain genetically built into my makeup. And the very danger of talking to me could mean that others could catch this regressive, reactionary virus and turn them into people equally calling for their own elimination. So Arday was the victim of ideology. He's a very good example of inhumanity and danger of ideology. Underneath, I had a feeling he was quite a nice fellow, personable and so on and so forth, from what I've seen, which is very little. He didn't have that sort of brutal malevolence, systemic malevolence. It was more sort of messy, hopeless, strangely hopeless, imprisonment that is characteristic of the ideologically possessed. They don't, strictly speaking, have control of their own thoughts. that control is in the hands of long dead, usually it's a delicious, white men. I shouldn't laugh. I feel for him because I know the nature of ideology firsthand. And even though on the face of it I was unbelievably privileged, you can pay to walk around a palace. I spent a lot of my holidays in my grandmother's house and grandfather's and great-grandfather's, you know, and it is a palace. It's breathtaking. I don't like going around it much myself now because I feel awkward, understandably. But I'm very pleased that now other people can enjoy it, because quite frankly, when I was there, I didn't appreciate it. I wasn't old enough or educated enough to understand the sheer genius, the way the inside of the house is organically linked to the parkland and the vistas and the history of its construction and the relationship to the war that financed a lot of it. All that I knew nothing about. And I realized that in a way it was a form of gilded prison. You need to be super conformist to live happily in what is effectively a cage. Ideology cages minds, likewise. The academics responsible for fostering woke, for treating Jason Arday like a pet, were in turn pets themselves. And in the end, ideology did what it always does do to survive. If need be, it kills those who are no longer useful for its survival and spread, but could even be a danger to those objectives. So ironically, it turned on the person it had enslaved. I think of nothing more tragic. It seems that that university is a place full of people who have given up a sense of responsibility for their actions and have instead permitted robotic, ideological, systemic thinking to dehumanize them, to detach their ability, their consciousness to intervene in their thoughts, to make them sensible, and to ensure that whether they think their judgments, moral, political and social, are underpinned by humanity itself. That is respect for the human spirit and soul. But they let it happen. I am repulsed. It is beyond offensive that someone should surrender their own agency. It's almost as good as taking an innocent person, throwing them into jail and chucking the key away. And then going around saying how horrid that person is and how right they were to put them in prison, even as you are committing far greater offences and behaving in a vastly more inhumane way than the person you've incarcerated. The hypocrisy is off the scale. Yeah. So, in memoram of Jason Arday, don't let him die without some good coming from it.